Once upon a time, in a quiet village in Enugu State, there lived a young girl named Amarachi. She was just 20 years old, but she was extremely beautiful and had a smile that used to light up even the darkest corners of their compound. But now, that smile had faded and she was now a shadow of herself. Now, she sat alone every evening on the wooden bench outside her late father's house, watching the sun go down in pain and regret. She was 8 months pregnant. Her mother, Nkechi, barely looked at her anymore. Her elder brother, Ebuka, refused to speak a word to her. And the man who had promised her heaven and earth, the man who had whispered sweet nothings under the moonlight and won her trust, had disappeared from her life like smoke from a cooking fire. It all started with a simple kiss. Amarachi had met Chinedu during her 1-year apprenticeship at a local tailoring shop in Nsukka. Chinedu was tall, handsome and full of promises. He always came around to buy gala or pure water beside her madam's shop. But soon, he started buying extra just so he could stand and talk with Amarachi. Chinedu had a mouth full of dreams and promises. "I go carry you go Abuja," he used to say, touching her chin. "You no go suffer. I go open big tailoring shop for you. Now you be my tomorrow. Now you be my future wife. You be my spec." At first, Amarachi resisted. She knew what happened to girls who trusted men easily. But Chinedu was persistent, kind and careful. He appeared to be very different. He met her mother and became a friend of the family. He often helped Amarachi in house chores. He even followed her to church one Sunday. So when he started asking her to meet with him behind the market after work, she trusted him and went. Once, twice, until it became very frequent. Then one fateful day, in a small uncompleted building by the market, Amarachi trusted him and gave herself to him. She was naive, so she didn't ask for protection. No thinking, just love and a little foolishness. 2 months later, Amarachi missed her period. She told Chinedu the news, expecting joy or at least concern. But his face changed immediately she finished talking. "You must be joking," he said. "You want to trap me, Abi?" "No, Chinedu," she said, tears filling her eyes. "I thought you said you loved me, that you would marry me." "I no tell you to make you born for me," he barked, stepping back. "I get plans for my life. I'm not ready to be a father. You're on your own, oh. You better look for a way to remove that thing in your stomach." The next day, Chinedu's phone stopped going through. A week later, someone told Amarachi he had traveled to Lagos for business. Weeks passed, but he never came back. Mama Nkechi found out before Amarachi could even try to hide or abort it. She saw the wrappers folded under her bed, the small herbal mixtures hidden in a small bottle, the way Amarachi had started vomiting every morning. On that fateful morning, when Nkechi was sure of her suspicions, she slapped Amarachi. The slap was very loud and painful. "You want to bring shame to my name? Your mates are in school. You're busy sleeping around, eh?" Amarachi begged. She cried. She knelt and explained everything to her mother. But her mother turned cold and told her, "You will carry this cross alone. I was not there when you were enjoying yourself with him, so I won't be here when you're suffering the consequences alone." Ebuka, her elder brother, who had always protected her from bullies in the village, now walked past her as if she didn't exist. As the baby inside her grew, Amarachi stopped going out. She stopped going to church. Even Mamuju, who used to greet her every morning, now crossed to the other side of the road. Nobody wanted to talk to the girl who got pregnant without a husband. One afternoon, when the sun was high and her feet had started to swell badly, Amarachi sat in front of their house, staring into the distance. She had no baby clothes, no diapers, no soap, no towel and no money. Just one wrapper that was beginning to tear at the edges and a simple plastic basin. She thought of ending it all. She thought of ending her life many times, but each time the baby kicked, something inside her pulled her back, as if the baby was trying to stop her. And so Amarachi decided, I will live for you, she whispered, rubbing her belly. One Thursday afternoon, the cramps started. Amarachi felt a sharp hot pain in her lower back. She held the wooden pole near the backyard and screamed as loud as she could. Mama! Mama! Mama Nkechi came running, and for the first time in many months, she looked into Amarachi's eyes with fear, not anger. She's in labor. Get water. Somebody help. Get wrapper. Please help me call Mama Chioma. The compound became busy for the first time in a year. Women rushed in, shouting instructions. Buckets of hot water appeared from nowhere. The cries grew louder as Amarachi bit her lips. She screamed, she pushed, her eyes rolled back. Then finally, everyone heard the cry of a baby girl. They placed the baby in her arms after she was cleaned. The child was so small, so soft, so warm. Amarachi stared at the little girl with tears falling down her face. But they were not tears of joy. It was fear, shame and hunger. She had nothing to feed her. No money, no support and no plan. The baby was wrapped in an old pillowcase. Mama, what will I do? Amarachi whispered to her mother, whose eyes had suddenly softened. Nkechi stood silent for a moment, then walked out of the room. And that was when the baby's breath suddenly stopped. Amarachi looked down and saw that the child was no longer moving. She sat frozen with her arms wrapped around the baby like a statue. But something was very wrong. The room had gone quiet, too quiet. The baby, who had just cried only once when she was born, had suddenly gone quiet in her arms. Her tiny lips were parted, but no sound came. Her chest was not moving. Her fingers had stopped calling. Amarachi screamed, Mama! Mama, she's not breathing! Nkechi, who had stepped outside to boil hot water, dropped the kettle and ran in barefoot, nearly sleeping on the wet floor. What is it? What happened? She cried frantically. Amarachi was shaking, rocking the baby. She was just okay, Mama. She was just fine. She was breathing. I don't understand, Mama. Mama. Nkechi snatched the child from her arms, placed her tiny body on the mat and began rubbing her chest hard. Chioma! Chioma! She screamed into the compound. Call Mama Chioma now. My daughter's baby is not breathing. Mama Chioma was the village birth attendant. Though she was not a trained nurse, she had helped deliver over 70 babies in the community, even when the women thought all hope was lost. Mama Chioma burst in, breathing hard. Move, let me see her. She picked up the baby with urgency, rubbed her feet hard, blew air into her nose, then pinched her heels. But still the baby didn't move or breathe. Mama Chioma turned her upside down and gave her a gentle slap on the back. Still, nothing happened. Amarachi was now crawling in tears. Her wrapper was loose and her voice cracked. Please help me. Help me, help me. Then Mama Chioma reached into her bag and brought out a small rubber suction bulb. She used it in the baby's nose and mouth. Then suddenly, the baby coughed and moved. A loud, sharp cry filled the room. Everyone gasped. The baby was alive. Amarachi collapsed in tears. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Mama Nkechi turned her face away from the people. She did not want anyone to see the tears in her eyes. The baby was named Chisom, meaning God is with me. That night, the baby lay wrapped in an old towel. Amarachi had found it in her brother's bag. She had no diapers, so they folded a piece of Ankara cloth around her. There was no baby formula, no feeding bottle and no cradle. Just the four of them, Amarachi, Nkechi her mother, Ebuka and a crying newborn girl. I need to feed her, Amarachi said with a weak voice. She's hungry. Mama Nkechi nodded her head in agreement. Try to breastfeed her. But Amarachi's body was too weak. The milk from her breast was barely flowing. The baby cried through the night. By morning, the baby's eyes were swollen from hunger and tiredness. With no money and no help from the community, Amarachi decided to seek for help. She walked to the local health center, carrying Chisom in a wrapper tied to her back. People watched as she walked down the dusty road, but no one offered her a lift, not even water. They just walked past her like she was a complete stranger. At the health center, the nurse shook her head in pity and asked, "Where is the child's delivery record? Where is your baby pack?" "I don't have," Amarachi said, almost whispering in shame so no one else could hear. The nurse directed her to the government breastfeeding support unit, but even there, help was limited. "This baby is underfed," the matron at the support unit said. "She's fragile. You need food, milk and vitamins, not just for the baby, but also for yourself." Amachi sat on the corridor floor of the support unit for hours, crying silently. She watched other women in fine wrappers carry their babies in clean clothes, laughing and chatting, but she felt invisible. She was just another poor girl with a child and no father. As she stood up to leave, a woman tapped her on the shoulder. She was in her early 40s with tribal marks on her face. "You are Amarachi, right?" she asked. "Yes," Amarachi replied, looking confused. "I heard what happened. My cousin was at your compound when you gave birth, but I'm not here to judge you." The woman bent down and untied her handbag. Then she brought out a small tin of baby milk and 3 clean napkins. "Take these. It's not much, but it can help for today." Amarachi fell to her knees and started crying again. "God bless you, ma. Thank you." "No need. Just promise to take care of her. That child has a strong spirit. She refused to die, so don't let her suffer." That night, Amarachi returned home weak but hopeful. She boiled hot water, mixed the milk and watched Chisom drink with tiny greedy lips. It was the first time her baby slept for more than 2 hours. Just as Amarachi was about to lie down, she heard footsteps. When she turned, she saw her brother Ebuka. He stood in the doorway with arms folded. "Where did you go?" he asked. "I went to the clinic," Amarachi replied, holding Chisom in her hands. Ebuka looked at the baby for the first time since she was born. Then he said something that broke her heart more than anything. "She looks like Chinedu." Amarachi looked down but said nothing. Then Ebuka threw a brown envelope on the bed. "What is this?" she asked. "Money," he said coldly. "Use it to buy what the child needs." "But why now?" Amarachi asked him, surprised. "Because even though I hate what happened, the baby didn't ask for this. She deserves a chance," Ebuka replied. Amarachi covered her mouth and the tears came again as Ebuka left. The next few days were better. With the money her brother gave her, Amarachi bought baby powder, extra clothes and food for herself. Chisom's cheek began to rise and she started to smile when touched. Everything started to gradually become normal in the house. Nkechi, her mother, even carried her once while sweeping. There was peace. Until one morning, exactly 3 months after Amarachi gave birth to Chisom, someone knocked on their door. When Amarachi opened the door, her mouth fell open. It was Chinedu with a wide smile on his face. There was a woman beside him and a wedding ring on his finger. The same Chinedu who disappeared when she told him she was pregnant. The same one who blocked her number and vanished from the village like wind. Now he stood at her doorway, well-fed, wearing designer shoes, holding the hands of another woman and wearing a smile like nothing ever happened. Amarachi stood frozen. Her baby was tied on her back. Her eyes were wide in disbelief. "Amara," he said calmly like he was greeting an old friend. "You look good." Amarachi didn't reply. She just stared at him and the woman. The woman beside him gave a stiff smile. She looked older, with neatly fixed braids and gold bangles. Chinedu cleared his throat. "Can we come in?" Mama Nkechi, hearing the voices, stepped outside and gasped. "Jesus, Chinedu." He smiled at Mama Nkechi. "Good evening, ma. I came to see my child." Amarachi refused to let him into the house. Instead, they sat under the mango tree in the compound, the same tree where Amarachi had once waited for him every day, hoping he would return. Now she sat with a baby strapped to her back, arms folded and heart pounding. "You have some nerves," Nkechi said. "You left my daughter to suffer alone. And now that the child is alive and breathing, you show up with this woman like it's a movie." "I understand how you feel, ma," Chinedu said calmly with a smile on his face. "I was scared, ma. I was young and I panicked. I didn't know what to do then." Amarachi stood up in anger. "You ran. Was that the best choice?" "I was not ready," Chinedu replied. "But now I am, and I want to take responsibility for my daughter." "Your daughter?" Amarachi laughed bitterly. "You mean the same child you said wasn't yours? The one you said I used to trap you, you evil being?" Chinedu nodded slowly. "That's why I'm here, to make it right. My wife and I are ready to take her in. We will raise her well, give her a good life." "You what? You want to take who?" Then Chinedu's wife finally spoke. "Look, we can give her the life that you can't. Clean house, good school, a name that won't carry shame. And you're just, 20? No job, no husband, no future. What can you give her?" Nkechi stood up with anger burning in her chest. "If you don't leave my compound now, Chinedu, I will show you the madness I've been holding for almost 2 years." Chinedu looked at Amarachi one last time and said with a cold voice, "I'll be back, with papers and with my lawyer. She's my blood and you can't keep her from me." The next day, the whole village buzzed with gossip. "Did you hear that Chinedu wants to take the child? They said the new wife is barren, no, that's why." So he abandoned Amarachi, married a Lagos woman, and now wants the baby like it's a handbag. Now wow. Women whispered in the market. Men shook their heads. Old women cursed under their breath. Amarachi refused to come outside. She locked herself in and cried, not for herself, but for Chisom, for the fear of waking up one day and her baby would be gone. Even Ebuka, who had started warming up to the child, sat silently that night with clenched fists. "If he tries to come here again, I will kill him," he said in anger. 1 week later, a letter arrived. It was delivered by a man in blue shirt and dusty shoes. The letter read, "Family court, summons, case, parental custody hearing. Petitioner, Mr. Chinedu Okeke. Respondent, Miss Amarachi Nkemakonam." Amarachi held the paper in shaking hands as she read through. "Mama, they want to take her legally." Amarachi finally cried. Mama Nkechi took the paper, tore it in half and threw it on the floor. "They will not when I'm alive." But law was law and they had to go. The courtroom was not in their village. It was in Nsukka Township, far from the dusty village Amarachi knew and grew up in. She borrowed a dress from a neighbor and carried Chisom on her back, praying with every step. Chinedu came in a car. His wife wore heels that clicked across the thighs. They had a lawyer in a suit and briefcase. They brought baby items, clothes, toys, a tiny baby cot, all arranged neatly. In the courtroom, Amarachi stood alone. The judge was a woman. Her name was Justice Obiako. She was tall with tiny glasses and a strong voice. "Let's begin," she said. Chinedu's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, our client acknowledges his earlier absence, but now he's married, financially stable, and ready to raise his biological child in better environment." The judge turned to Amarachi. "Miss Nkemakonam, what do you have to say?" Amarachi stepped forward with her baby quiet on her back. She did not speak at first. She looked at the judge, then looked at Chinedu. And then she opened her heart. "My name is Amarachi," she said, her voice cracking. "I was 18 when I met Chinedu. I was naive, but I was honest and I trusted him." She paused. "When I told him I was pregnant, he disappeared. He didn't call. He didn't send money. He left me to suffer in shame. He also denied being the father of the child." The courtroom was silent. "I gave birth on the cold floor of our house with nothing. No diapers, no clothes or food. I begged for milk. I begged for water. This baby, Chisom, almost died in my arms because her father was too busy living his life. But God saved her, and I swore I'd never let her feel unwanted again. Then again, she looked straight at Chinedu. You don't get to walk back into our lives and act like a hero. You don't get to take her now, not because you love her, just because you want to clean your shame. The judge removed her glasses slowly. The courtroom stayed quiet for nearly a minute. Then the gavel hit the table and the judge said, "We will adjourn for deliberation." Outside the courtroom, Chinedu walked up to Amarachi. "Let's make a deal," he said in a low voice. "I'll give you 5 million naira. Just let her come and live with us. You'll still see her." Amarachi laughed bitterly. "You want to buy my daughter with 5 million naira? She'll live in Lagos, learn good English, go to a good school. You'll still be her mother, just not her guardian." Amarachi stepped closer, her voice calm but deadly. "I bled for her, and I fought death for her. I almost buried her with my bare hands. And you think you can take her now because you have a car and a house?" She tapped her chest and told Chinedu boldly, "She is mine, and I would rather die than sell her." 2 days later, a letter arrived. The judge had made her ruling. The letter was sealed, but Amarachi refused to open it because she was scared. "You must open it," her mother told her. "Whatever it says, we will face it." Amarachi opened it with shaking hands. She read the words and screamed. The judge had ruled, and the decision was worse than Amarachi ever imagined. Temporary shared custody is hereby granted to Mr. and Mrs. Chinedu Okeke for a period of 90 days, during which the child Chisom shall reside with the petitioners under scheduled visitation right for Miss Amarachi Nkema Konam. The court will review permanent custody following this trial period. In plain words, they were taking her baby away. Amarachi dropped to the floor. No, Mama, they can't take her. She just started smiling. She knows me now. She turns when I sing. She sleeps when I hum. She's mine." Mama Nkechi knelt beside her. "You will fight it, but you cannot do anything if they say it's the law. We must pray and we must act wisely." But Amarachi was already trembling. "I feel like I'm dying, Mama. Like someone is cutting me from inside." Outside the room, Chisom cried softly, and for the first time since her birth, Amarachi didn't rush to carry her. 3 days later, a white Toyota Camry pulled into Mama Nkechi's compound. The car door opened and Chinedu stepped out in a polo shirt. His wife was beside him, carrying a baby carrier. Amarachi stood at the door, holding Chisom tightly to her chest. Her daughter was sleeping peacefully, innocently, unaware that her world was about to tear apart. "We are here," Chinedu said. Amarachi did not answer. "We brought all her things," his wife added. Amarachi still did not answer. Chinedu stepped forward. "You see her twice a week. We already agreed." Nkechi put her hand on Amarachi's shoulder. "Do it calmly. Don't let them say you're unfit. That's what they want." Amarachi whispered one last song into her daughter's ear, a lullaby, the same song she had sung every night. Then, with shaking hands, she placed Chisom into the baby carrier. As the car drove off, she collapsed on the ground, screaming so loudly that even the heavens heard her cry and felt her pain. The house went quiet. No more cries at midnight. No more one body against her chest. No more tiny fingers reaching for her necklace. Amarachi stared at the empty baby mat beside her every morning and counted the hours until visitation. She went to church, she prayed, she fasted. Every Sunday, she held Chisom's old clothes like perfume, smelling them to remember. And finally, Wednesday came, her first visitation. She arrived at the duplex in Nsukka wearing her best wrapper and borrowed slippers. A security man opened the gate. "You are the girl?" he asked. "I'm her mother," she replied firmly. The gate man smiled at Amarachi and told her, ever since they brought the baby home, she has been crying. Everything they did to calm her down was useless. I guess she misses her mother. Inside the duplex, Chisom was lying on a white bed, dressed like a princess, air conditioned humming, toys were everywhere. The walls were painted soft pink. But when Amarachi reached for her, Chisom started smiling. When it was time for Amarachi to leave, Chisom refused to let go. She wouldn't stop crying as Amarachi left the duplex. But during the next visitation day, Chinedu's gateman was instructed not to let Amarachi into the compound. This happened 3 times. Amarachi was deeply heartbroken and angry. She went to make a formal report, but Chinedu had bribed the officer in charge that day. So when she went to see the officer, he warned Amarachi to forget about the child. That day, Amarachi stood outside in the rain, staring at the dark sky in her mother's compound. "Mama," she said, "what if I just take her? She doesn't like it there. My daughter is sad and unhappy. She deserves to be with me." Mama Nkechi turned sharply. "What are you saying?" Not to steal. Just run, disappear. Take my baby and vanish. Maybe go to Kano or cross river, somewhere they can't find us," Amarachi explained. Her mother looked at her with fear. "If you do that, they will arrest you. You will go to prison and then they will take her forever. You would never be able to see her again." Amarachi nodded slowly. "So I should sit here and watch another woman raise my child, feed her, bathe her, hear her first words, even when my child doesn't want her?" "I didn't say that. I said don't act in anger. Let's find a better way." But Amarachi had already made a decision. She went back to the court registry next day and requested all custody records. She made photocopies. Then she visited a legal aid center and explained her situation and position to a very experienced humanitarian lawyer. Then she visited someone else, someone no one had expected, her brother, Ebuka. He was sitting at a bar, drinking palm wine when she arrived. "I need your help, brother," she said, standing before him. He looked up. "With what?" "I want to bring Chisom home." Ebuka was silent for a while. Then he said something shocking. "I know where they take her on Saturdays. A private clinic for checkups. Not too secure. I can drive you there." Amarachi's hand shook. "You will help me?" Ebuka took another sip of wine. "She's our blood. No one has the right to snatch her away." On a quiet Saturday, Amarachi waited in the shadows across the street from the clinic. Ebuka's old car was parked nearby. The engine was running. Then when she saw them, Chinedu's wife stepping out with Chisom in her arms, Amarachi crossed the road and walked fast, and without thinking, she snatched her baby and ran. Chinedu's wife screamed, "Thief! Thief!" But Amarachi didn't stop. She jumped into Ebuka's car and they sped off. They hid in a friend's house outside the village, in a tiny room with no windows, no light, just a kerosene lamp. For 2 days, Amarachi held Chisom like a prisoner holds hope, feeding her, rocking her, singing to her like she used to. But she knew it wouldn't last. On the 3rd morning, the police came. She didn't fight. She handed Chisom to Ebuka and walked outside with her hands in the air. They arrested her and took her to court once again. Back in front of the judge, Amarachi stood in handcuffs. Chinedu and his wife stood across, furious, but the courtroom was different this time. There were reporters. There were women from human rights groups. There were whispers. She only wanted her baby now. Justice Obiako looked at Amarachi for a long time. "Do you regret what you did?" she asked. Amarachi nodded. "I do, but I will do it again because she is mine. They refused to even let me see my own child." Then the judge leaned forward. "This court rules to revoke shared custody due to the emotional trauma caused by this situation. However, due to the petitioner's abandonment, this court hereby grants full parental custody to Miss Amarachi Nkema Konam." The room gasped. Tears fell down Amarachi's face like a river. She had won, and it felt like a miracle. After some months, Amarachi found work in a local bakery with some good salary. Chisom grew into a beautiful toddler, playful, strong, and full of light. One evening, as the sun set behind the old mango tree, Amarachi sat with her daughter on her lap. She was no longer angry. She had scars, but they reminded her what she had survived. She looked down at Chisom and whispered, "I cried the day I gave birth to you, not because of joy, but because I had nothing to feed you. But now, I cry because I have everything, because I didn't give up, and because you are still mine." And for the first time, Chisom looked up and said her first words, "Mama." The moral lesson of this story reminds us that one wrong choice can change your whole life, but standing strong afterwards can save it. Don't let sweet words blind your future. Don't give your body to someone who won't stay for your heart. And if life breaks you, rise, fight, protect what matters. Because true strength is never in not failing. It is in rising, wiser, braver, and stronger.